There was a time, when the night itself was the enemy. If your bedroom feels cold on a winter night, well, history has a way of humbling that complaint. For most of human existence, winter nights were not an inconvenience, they were a threat. A night in a 19th century New England farmhouse, a Scandinavian longhouse, or a lone cabin on the Dakota frontier meant thin wooden walls, icy floors, and darkness broken only by firelight. No electricity, no foam mattress, no synthetic comforter. And yet, here is the unsettling truth that should keep you watching. Those people often slept warmer and more consistently than we do today. They endured hundreds of freezing nights without central heating, without modern bedding, and without the comforts we consider essential. They weren't tougher by nature. They were smarter about warmth. Tonight, on The Hard Past, we uncover the forgotten system that made winter survival possible. A system so effective it still outperforms much of what we use today. Before we dive deeper, take a second to like the video, share it with someone who loves real history, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to The Hard Past. Now, let's move straight into the knowledge that once kept entire generations alive. Why modern bedding creates a false sense of security. Modern comfort has convinced us that warmth comes from thickness and technology. Memory foam, mattresses, oversized comforters, climate-controlled bedrooms, and heaters that can warm a room in minutes feel like progress. But, this comfort hides a weakness. Foam mattresses, for instance, trap moisture and, they actually pull cold upward from below. Synthetic comforters, on the other hand, rely on bulk rather than structure, which allows warm air to circulate and escape as the night goes on. When power fails, or say temperatures drop unexpectedly, these systems collapse fast. Our ancestors, though, they didn't depend on heating the room. Instead, they focused on controlling the few inches of air surrounding the body. That difference is everything. It's how pre-modern people understood heat without textbooks. Ancient and early modern households, they learned heat the hard way. Winter punished mistakes. Over generations, 3 principles emerged. Heat survives when air stays still. Moisture destroys warmth faster than cold itself. And, perhaps most importantly, the human body is the furnace, not the room. From these truths came the idea of the microclimate, a sealed pocket of warm, motionless air created deliberately around the sleeper. Instead of fighting winter by conquering the space, people survived by mastering the air closest to their skin. The historical proof written in ink and frost. This wasn't folklore. Civil War diaries describe soldiers rolling wool blankets beneath their shoulders and hips, tucking edges tight to block icy drafts on frozen ground. British Army field manuals in the late 1800s formally instructed soldiers to layer sheets and wool tucked on 3 sides because officers knew loose bedding meant cold, exhaustion, and illness. Scandinavian settlers in the American Midwest wrote about sleeping on straw-lined platforms with wool both under and over the body to stop what they called ground chill. Across continents and centuries, the method stayed the same because it worked. The real physics behind the old blanket arrangement, well, it's quite fascinating. What our ancestors practiced instinctively is now well understood. Conduction steals heat when your body presses against cold surfaces, which is why insulation beneath the sleeper mattered as much as what was on top. And, convection steals heat when air moves, which is why loose blankets fail, no matter how thick they feel. Evaporative cooling drains warmth as moisture leaves the skin, which is why wool remained king. Layered systems trap multiple pockets of still air, outperforming single bulky comforters that lose heat steadily through internal airflow. The forgotten layering formula, it really kept people alive. The system was simple, yet precise. A wool layer beneath the body blocked cold, rising up from below, and managed moisture. Then a breathable cotton or linen layer softened contact and stabilized sweat. A heavy quilt or blanket on top pressed the system together, sealing warmth in place. Weight wasn't for comfort, it was for control. Each layer had a job, and together they created a stable thermal chamber that lasted until morning. Why tucking mattered more than thickness. The most critical step modern sleepers abandoned is tucking. By sealing 3 edges of the bedding under the body or mattress, people created a miniature sleeping chamber. This stopped cold air from sliding toward the spine and feet and prevented warm air from escaping during the night. Soldiers, sailors and settlers didn't just cover themselves, They enclosed themselves. A blanket that isn't tucked was considered, pretty much useless in real cold. How different sleeping surfaces changed the method. People adapted the same principles to beds, floors and cots. Wooden floors demanded insulation beneath the torso. Iron bed frames required aggressive tucking to stop drafts from below. Military cots forced soldiers to fold blankets under their spines to counter rising cold. The surface changed, but the rule never did. Protect the core first. Warm circulation keeps the extremities alive. Why this knowledge still matters today is honestly quite remarkable. Modern reenactors and cold-weather survivalists continue to test these methods. Again and again, layered wool systems maintain steady warmth longer than modern comforters, especially after midnight, when synthetic systems, they tend to fail. In power outages and winter emergencies, this knowledge isn't just nostalgic, it's life-saving. Most people today have never learned how to sleep warm without electricity, and that ignorance, frankly, carries real risk. For most of history, the bed was not a luxury. It was a carefully engineered refuge against death by cold. Modern comfort made us forget what warmth truly is, but, history remembers. If you understand how your ancestors slept, you carry a skill that still works when technology fails. If you found this guide valuable, subscribe to The Hard Past, share it with someone who respects real history, and keep this knowledge alive. Some lessons are simply too important to let freeze into the past.